Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown, the first Monday edition of the season, but not the last, I think it's fair to say. Dave, lots of games to get through, although not quite as much drama as you might hope from
No.
the number of games that we've got. Let's go back to Tuesday, where it was quite exciting, actually. London Lions 89, Cheshire Phoenix 83. London's first four scores of the games were all three-pointers. Siobhan Reynolds hit two. Cameron McGusty hit two. They were 14-2 up inside 3.5 minutes, London.
Yeah, I got my old tweet out about for the aficionados of this show about Richard Hadley and the Ilford second 11. Um, Basically, London starting five is looking a little bit scary.
Mm,
Um, they have the spacing is there. Reynolds is really impressive. He looks like a Euro Cup guard.
mm.
Really does. Just the way he moves, the way he gets to his shot, the way he rises up, the consistency of his movement and consistency of his shooting motion, his quickness. He doesn't appear to be pressured at any point. I think he's one of those guys who's virtually impossible to pressure. And obviously, he's knocking down the threes even better. But the two bigs, obviously Scott and the centre, whose name I keep confusing with somebody else, left-handed fadeaway shooter. Is it Williams? Can't
Yeah,
remember.
Williams. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Williams.
yeah, yeah.
Scott and Williams. And then Rye is the kind of guy I haven't quite figured out yet as to how he's going to fit with all of it. But basically, I think may have started Sulawadi in one of the games this week as well and brought Rye off the bench. But yeah, really, really kind of dominant group. But then after about 5 minutes, Sabonis decided he'd go for basically 5 for 5, not in one go, but he subbed in basically a whole team of bench players, and they were very discombobulated.
Mm.
And the game turned, and they gave Cheshire a sniff.
Yeah, and Policelli doesn't need much time to get a three-point shot away. He started hitting from behind the arc. Knicks had 12 in a row, and it was down to 3:23:20.
Yeah, I thought it was London's offense. London's offense basically, was like a machine, which was kind of like a car engine that was packing up slowly. It
Mm,
just could put and that then figures into your defense. And I thought that was their kind of spacing issues. Who's going to make a shot in that unit? Really particularly interesting to see that, in the Friday night game or the Friday, the next game they played. The rotation shortened a bit, and that unit wasn't there anymore.
mm.
So I think, Sabonis made decisions quite quickly that, we're not going to mess it. We're not quite at the level where we've got six bench players who can just go on and steamroller an SLB team. Um,
That
so yeah,
that was kind
and
of the
particularly
pattern
Cheshire.
of it, because
Yeah,
because London got back out to 9, and then Cheshire scored 11 of the last 13 points of the half. It was they actually led at halftime to start
yeah.
quite a bit
You
then.
see the lovely little vignette at half time just as they went in on the buzzer.
I'm not sure I did. Did
No,
I?
but basically, just the last play was Tariq Phillip and LaQuincy Rideau. And if you go back on the video, what you'll see is just I think it was right. It was under the Lions offensive basket, and just as the buzzer went and the ball went to the side, as Rideau turned around, he gave Philip just a little bump,
Okay,
just
I
a little
missed
one,
that.
and Philip kind of had a quick look and continued on walking. And obviously, for those who don't know, last time Rideau was here, him and Philip had a little bit more than a quick bump
They
at
did,
Ellesmere
yeah,
Court, and and Philip actually gave him a slap, which
yeah,
would normally be preceded with a word that I wouldn't normally use,
yeah,
because of kind of the way that he perceived that Rideau was acting.
yeah, yeah.
So
Spoke to him like an American crowd at Rory McIlroy.
exactly, yes. His response to that was absolutely. His response in the press conference to that was incredible,
Yeah, yeah.
and response on the course was pretty good too. So yeah, that's another. I mean, these games this week that we're talking about, people are going to have to buy into the fact that I'm watching the Ryder Cup and Newcastle v Arsenal
Yeah.
and on three different screens at the same time. But no, so there was so keep watching that during the season. There's a bit of afters there with Rideau and Philip.
Yeah,
And Cheshire, I haven't really talked about Cheshire. Yeah, as you say, Policelli is a fearless shooter. Just absolutely quick release, kind of slightly an orthodox shot, but fearless. And whilst he was one of seven in his first game, he made a few in this game.
yeah, he did. He made a few in the other two games as well.
Yeah, true.
Um, 8 in a row had Cheshire 47-55 ahead. Their lead peaked at 11 midway through the third quarter. It was still 11 early in the fourth quarter, but Soko and Scott powered London to a 19-5 spell and into the lead, and that was kind of
Yeah,
the back-breaking run. I thought they could have kept the lead at that point.
I thought Soko was really impactful
Mm,
in this game just because he was able to score the ball a little bit, he was able to body up a little bit, and anchor them, and he knows what it's about. He's still we forget how good a player Ovi Soko quote marks was, and
mm,
therefore still can be. The level he was playing at only a couple of years ago, and now he's kind of coming off the bench and maybe the 10th man or whatever, but he's still a great weapon to have. And Scott is their kind of get out of jail card.
mm,
But it kind of comes down to their defense. They gave up shots against Cheshire because firstly Cheshire got going with against the bench unit, and then when Cheshire get going, you've got some guys there who can score and shoot, and they're playing five out. So you've got to be able to defend them.
mm,
And when they got probably what you'd describe as their primary group on. And interestingly, that primary group didn't include Rye because he was playing Dean Williams, um, at the three spot a lot, a big, long kind of player. And when you got that defensive unit going, and then Philip made a big shot with 2 minutes to go,
mm,
which references us back to the Philip Rideau thing.
mm. Yeah.
Philip
Yeah,
didn't want to
because
lose the
because
game.
Policelli had got it down to 83-81 as well, but London were able to stay in front and say that was an important shot late on. Scott, 21 points, 6 rebounds, 69% field goal shooting. I had a really good stat about that, but I've forgotten it now. Reynolds, 18 points and 10 assists. Jonathan Williams, 13 points and 7 rebounds. Policelli, 6 of 11 for three, 22 points. Robinson, Brenchley, Rideau all had 12. He was 6 of 11 for three. The rest of the team was 3 of 16 for three.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see, but they're going to be a tough team to shoot against London.
Mm,
I mean, the copper box isn't the easiest place to shoot anyway because of the depth perception, but they're long and they're going to be throwing bodies at people. And the London ceiling is probably dependent upon how impactful their bench can be because their bench is full of guys you'd say, oh, they're okay. Okay, but I don't, apart from Tarek Phillip and Obi Soko, but the other guys have got things to prove. Even in this league, Solowadi's got things to prove. We know what he is, but can he be Sandy, Ethan Price, who I don't think played in. I'm not sure if he got off the bench in this game. And there's one other guy Imina Damu, as well.
He didn't play in that one. He played in the
In the
Friday
next
night
one, yeah.
game. Yeah.
So kind of those guys, you know, all should be able to contribute in the SLB, but it's not easy being a contributor in the SLB if you're the ninth or 10th player and you're not guaranteed those minutes and you don't know who you can be playing with, and the coach is using you kind of in and out. So, that's their scene. They don't have, as I say, they don't have quite the depth that they had. They have the depth in numbers. We haven't seen Mikesell yet, but they don't quite have the depth they had last time they were playing in Eurocup when they kind of had Luke Nelson as well, and Philip, and those guys coming off the bench. So they're still pretty good,
Mm,
and the coach is still messing around with them, trying to find out how much better he can make them. And whilst he's messing around with them, they're still winning games, which
mm.
is really kind of positive. And you kind of stop messing around with them as the week went on. So it's tough to see anybody else beating them regularly at this point.
And obviously, Eurocup starts this week, so that'll
Yeah,
add into it. I've just realised I'm not plugged in, but I think I should be all right. We'll see. Let's come to Friday night.
I haven't been plugged in for years, Dan. Sorry.
Leicester Riders 65, Sheffield Sharks 93. The 150th meeting between these two clubs, and probably one of the more boring ones, to be honest with you. Sheffield with a 14-0 run to lead 15-2, and that was basically the ball game. three and a half
Yeah, I
minutes
mean,
in.
obviously, Sheffield would have been a bit embarrassed about last week at Bristol. Literally anything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. They ran into a five-out team who made a ton of shots, and Chapman basically hardly played, and when he did play, it wasn't in any rhythm. He played like 5 or 6 minutes, so there was no chance for him to get in the game. And so that against that, Leicester coming out probably thinking, well, actually, we were pretty solid against London. We got the hang of this, and they kind of regressed a little bit in this game. The difficulty is that Sheffield is absolutely chock full of proven BBL SLB
Mm,
talent. Chock full of it.
mm.
And if you were to pick kind of put together a group of players, um, kind of cherry pick them from the best of the SLB over the past few years, you wouldn't go far wrong with Nixon, Chapman, Dirk Williams, the good version of William Lee, Mervyn James, with an athletic 6'9" American centre, and Jordan Ratinho and Rod Glasgow, So and even Kern as well. So that's they know what they're walking into. There should be no adjustment for them, particularly after getting smacked last week.
Mm,
And Leicester guys, there's a lot of uncertainty with the Leicester
mm,
guys. Obviously, they just signed another American who wasn't playing. They need that extra American. They need that extra scoring punch because their offense, isn't functioning the way that Rob's offenses normally do. They also don't have a stretch four, which is kind of the thing that they've always built around. If you go back to Abercrombie last year, you go back to Mark Loving, um, Pierre Hampton, even Drew Sullivan, those guys.
Andy Thompson.
Andy Thompson, oh, well, he was a five by the end.
Mm,
Andy was a five. He didn't want to guard that guys. But Andy Thompson could be, that give them that spacing, which open when you've got a big guy who can step out and who is a quick release catch and shoot guy or a threat off the dribble, it makes a difference. I'm not quite sure who their four-man is at the moment. Um, Akot, Suleiman, um, they kind of appear to me to be kind of threes, masquerading a bit of forward. Neither of them are what you describe as catch and shoot guys. And I think that stuffs them up a little bit. And on top of that, as I say, Sheffield has something to prove. And
mm,
and if you're not ready for Sheffield, and Rob's got a lot of new players there who are trying to figure it all out, figure a lot out very quickly. If you're not ready for Prentice Nixon, if you're not ready for Dirk Williams, their offense was too easy.
mm,
Leicester struggled to challenge the shots that Sheffield were able to step into, and they're going to knock them down because they're talented players. So yeah, there wasn't much in it after that.
no, there was a bit of chippiness, but because the game was so one-sided, it didn't
Well,
really matter.
I mean, we're going to get to it, but the reality, there was a bit of chippiness, and I think was it Shelton again, and I mean,
Shelton and
I was
Chapman.
disappointed. I thought, yeah, Chapman. I thought Shelton in this game, they need, he only played 12 minutes because they need. He's going to have to learn that with these younger, newer players, they're going to need him a bit more.
Mm,
It's one thing being the kind of the energizer when you've got a bunch of veteran players who are going to play around you, and you've got Zach Jackson, and Abercrombie and Ethan Wright and those guys. But when you've got a bunch of young guys, then it can go the other way very quickly.
mm.
And they needed in him that game, and he kind of took himself out of that game
Yeah,
mentally, I
yeah,
thought.
yeah.
So he's gonna have to adapt his role as the season goes on. Otherwise, energy is great, but it has to be if used properly. Now with him, it's probably 75%, 25% is the burden. It's 75% good, 25% bad. But that can twist very quickly, and that 25% can have a different impact on the players he's got this year than it has on the players he had last year.
Yeah,
So the other thing is obviously we're dealing with new refs as well.
yeah,
We've seen some chippiness in a lot of the games, and that's because the first weekend is over, so everyone's getting down to business.
yeah,
First
yeah.
weekend, you just focus on the
I
game.
thought I thought there was a couple of things that they didn't deal with, and that kind of made it worse. There was one where Chapman pulled somebody's arm, and then they responded. Was it Suleiman? I think it was Suleiman. He pulled his arm, and then he pushed him back, and they got it was a conversation. There was no
Yeah,
punishment, and then obviously the Shelton and Chapman thing. something has to be called. I don't think
Yeah.
you can allow all of that to go on without calling
But we
something.
see what we have at this point, and we'll get to it in a little bit more detail in a couple of the future games. But what we have is um, people are being a bunch of refs who are being asked to sink or swim.
Mm,
Very few who've done games at this level before, and the difference in mentality of the players at this level compared to the players at lower levels. This is their job.
mm,
This isn't a semi-pro league. This isn't a Division Two or whatever. This is these guys' job, and these guys, and they're quite high level players. They're not
mm,
getting, they're making reasonable livings out of what they're doing, and that means there's a degree of thought and pride and all sorts of stuff that goes into games
mm,
that if you're not forewarned about, if you're not aware of, if you've not been exposed to, can take a minute to find out figure out what's going on.
mm,
And unfortunately, it's that those 2 or 3 minutes of you miss a couple of calls either way, and at that point, the players start taking things in their own hands, and it happens very
mm,
quickly.
mm.
It really does.
Um,
You ain't sorting it, I'm going to sort it,
yeah.
and so that's something we need to look at going forward. Because certainly the games that I've seen so far, generally the ones that have been done by the more experienced or the older refs have been better.
Mm,
I think it's very harsh on the younger refs who've coming out of Division Two or whatever to expect them to pick up the speed of an SLB game and the intensity and the amount of people who are there. I think it's close to being an ordeal. And whilst one element of it is development, another element of it you could say is setting them up to fail.
mm, mm.
So anyway, we'll move on that.
Shelton 12, Evie 12 and 7 assists. They shot 38% from the floor, 6 of 24 from three, and missed 11 free throws as well. Nixon 21 points and 5 assists. Chapman 15 points and 6 rebounds. Kern 14 points and 6 rebounds. And that was Atiba's biggest win against Rob.
Well,
Let's go back to the copper box. London Lions 72, Bristol Flyers 60, as we mentioned a moment ago. First game in for Adamo, first minutes of the season for him.
I
Bristol,
think
hey,
Solwade started this game, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, I think from memory. I don't think. Yeah, go on. Sorry, go on.
Bristol coming off the good win in Austria
Yes,
as
absolutely. Good job,
well.
guys.
Scott hitting early threes. London again starting really quickly out to a 10-2 lead. Are you onto the death march yet? Have we got
Yeah,
there?
well, yeah, not quite, no, because there's a lot of things to go yet, and I'm still not convinced by their bench, and
No,
that's
I mean for the starters.
for the starters, yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, whilst the starters remain healthy, you're going to be
Mm,
playing lots of games, and the thing that got me with this was Bristol kind of blinked a little bit. They
mm,
matched up, so they started Brody instead of the five out that they've been playing. And obviously, you do that to match up with the size that London have got. I think that kind of threw Bristol. I understand why it happened because it's very difficult to look at those guys and think, okay, Zach Anderson's going to guard Williams and Owen McCormack's going to guard Scott. You think, Jesus, how are we going to survive that? But it also took away from them offensively. And I think the reality with London is this year that is to beat them, the first thing you're going to have to do is to find a way to score.
mm,
And you're going to just have to be yourself to the very best level that you can be.
mm,
I don't think any team is going to successfully match up with London because they've got too many pieces to match up with. It's like a chessboard where they've got two extra pawns. That
mm,
however well you play, those two pawns are going to become queens at some point and bang your
mm,
stuff. So you're going to have to get a little bit funky and try and beat them the way you can. Cheshire are always going to play that way. They're going to be because they've got no other option. Because they don't really have a big guy to throw the ball into or a big guy to block up the paint. Even Zona's been shooting threes for Cheshire.
mm,
But Bristol have that kind of two-sided thing. They have Brody, who's a big guy, 6'10", 6'9", plays in the middle. Then they have everybody else on the perimeter who's shooting. And by starting Brody, I thought it took them out with a little bit of a rhythm. Albeit that might just be London's defense, or it might just be Bristol were dog tired because they played in Austria. So you've
yeah.
got to be careful about overthinking these things. But what we found was what I said last week was, what happens when the shots aren't dropping
Mm,
in Bristol because they don't really have much in the way of interior scoring, and what happens is it became a little bit of a dogfight. What I will say is that I thought Bristol really competed very well.
Mm,
You know, he competed for every ball, competed um, with kind of onside mismatches and everything. Um, and London still figuring stuff out. As I say, Rye is the biggest conundrum for them. I just don't know. You know, Rye is a guy who's had the ball in his hands so much in his 3 years here, of 2 years in the SLB, anyway, or 2 years in the BBL SLB, but he's not got the ball in his hands at all at the moment.
mm,
And he's playing in the corner, you know, and yeah, he's a good cutter, and yeah, he can play on the baseline, but you know, but you wouldn't say that he was your archetypal kind of corner 3 point, you know, wing shooter. He's got more to him than that. So if he's not going to get touches up there, and those touches are going to be McGusty's getting plenty of touches at the top, and Phillips getting plenty of touches at the top, and Reynolds is getting plenty of touches at the top. If he's not going to get them, how they get the best out of him, particularly in relation to European games, it's going to be quite significant. They're going to have to find a way.
mm.
Um, but they do have the cushion, don't they? They have a security blanket,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, with their depth and with their talent and with their size.
And they had a cushion basically through this whole game, but Bristol got it
Mm.
to two late in the first quarter, but it sort of stayed that sort of 7 to 13 point range. Flyers again got it to four with 5 minutes to go. They never quite looked like getting all the way back to me.
Yeah, I was the same. I mean, it was even a 6 point. It's because it's what we always say, isn't it? 6 points in a 66-60 game is
Mm,
against London's defense and the best guys on court at the end
mm.
is a lot more than 6 points in a, 104-98 game between Cheshire and Caledonia.
Yeah, yeah,
Get to
yeah,
that later.
yeah. Scott, 19 points, 9 rebounds. Reynolds, 14 points. McGusty, 11 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Holden, 11 points and 8 rebounds. Jonathan Brown, 11. And Darnell Brody also had 11. They were 6 of 27 this week. Not quite
Yeah, I mean,
quite
6
enough.
to 27 is tough. And also, but Jonathan Brown showing up, 11
Mm,
points on the line. That's a really encouraging thing for them.
mm,
Um, it kind of takes him forward because they're putting a lot of trust in him as a backup point guard. London, I mean, Scott just 19 and 9 without you realizing,
mm.
I mean, he is Andrew Smith, he's 20 and
Yeah,
10.
he is. Yeah,
You do
yeah,
not get many
yeah.
20 and 10 guys. And, you get guys who can put up 20 and 10, but the guys who can put up 20 and 10 without you kind of noticing,
Mm,
they're the guys you really want. They're
mm.
the guys you really have to pay for,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
Let's go to the final game on Friday. Newcastle Eagles 88, Cheshire Phoenix 70. This was an interesting start. The first field goal was at 6 minutes and 19 seconds on the clock. It was 1-0, three
I'll,
and a half minutes in. It was 3-all at the midpoint. I thought we were at St James's Park.
yeah, but they would have scored in the last minute, wouldn't they?
Mm,
It was best summed up to me by one of the Eagles' old stages, or oldish stages. You won't like me calling them old, but one of the guys who's been around a while with the Eagles saying to me, he thought the first 3 minutes was just kind of a sped up version of the Hoops for Health game that they normally played half time. I'm not taking credit for that. Can't take credit for that. So Stu, nice line.
Yeah,
And I can't disagree with it. I
yeah.
mean, it was absolutely manic. There were bodies flying around everywhere. It was to call it high energy would be probably over complimenting it because you'd have to throw in the kind of low skill as well.
Mm.
It was just um, it the neither team was overcome by composure is probably the
No.
best description I can give of it. But the intensity was great. Now, the again, I felt sorry for the three refs. It was sudden to trying to figure it all out because the way that game would have normally been given a little bit of composure would have been by a couple of judicious foul calls being blown.
Mm.
And the game stops and someone was a set offense from the wing. But at one point we were going up and down, and the bodies flying everywhere and it was, I was waiting for the first. Exactly. Yeah, I was thinking I was about to find my Bet365 app and see if I could get some money on the first stoppage of the game being for blood on the floor. Just crazy. So go back and watch it. Even Drew on the commentary was, what's going on here? Um, but that is it's certainly what Newcastle are going to be this year.
Mm.
Um, I think at the moment as they're currently constituted. Um, and in relation to Cheshire, Cheshire their physicality kind of goes as their two most physical guys are Rideau and Cameron,
Mm.
right? They play. Rideau is it was a liability in this game, to be frank. And Robinson was far, far better because I think there was more charges in this game than I see on a regular day.
I know, it
The
must have been a
magistrates court.
record number of charges.
Yeah, it was like a day at court for me. Um, and a lot of them were, Rideau, putting his shoulder down and just running into people. And Newcastle, to be fair, they were very well prepared in their scouting. They apart from a couple of threes that they gave up to Policelli, they basically switched every screen and basically got a chest in front of Rideau, and Rideau just basically took a chest as an invitation to kind of go through it.
Mm.
And see, that's a difficult game to ref if you've not been, none of those refs have seen anything like that in that game. And eventually, Newcastle's defense kind of wore down Cheshire, and they struggled to find ways to score.
The one thing this game had that the other three on Friday and Saturday night didn't?
Mm.
A lead change.
A
This
lead
was the
change.
only game with a lead change
Wow,
on Friday or Saturday.
that's a good
Uh,
spot. That
yeah,
it was quite early on that as well, wouldn't it? That would have been.
yeah.
Newcastle were up from probably halfway through the second quarter.
Well, when they did start scoring, it was Brenchley actually who helped Cheshire 18-11 up. That was the end of the first quarter. And then middle of the second quarter, Newcastle hit 11 points in a row to lead 30 to 25. But Josh Ward-Hibbert looked like he rolled his ankle, didn't return, didn't play
Yeah, I think he
on
landed on
Sunday either.
Marco Anthony's ankle
Mm.
going up. Yeah, that wasn't great.
No, and Eagles finished the half with the last 12 points lead, 43-30, and they kept Cheshire pretty much at bay and ran away with it in the fourth quarter. There weren't any lead changes after that, put it that
No, I
way.
mean it's a long time since I was saying after it's a long time since Newcastle actually won a home game, going away. Normally they're all, kind of filled with potential doom. But I thought overall, they're a really interesting team defensively, Newcastle, because other than Anthony giving up a couple of threes to Policelli in the third quarter, they basically said to Cheshire, "You're going to have to beat us one on one." And every screen that they set, they switched, which is normally a very risky thing to do because normally if you've got a 5'11" point guard and a 7 foot center, if you switch those screens, then your point guard is going to be guarding their 7 foot center, and your 7 foot guy is going to be guarding their 5'11" point guard, neither of which are good. But the advantage of switching means you don't have to rotate. Everybody else can stay at home. They don't have to come and help on the screen, which gives up open threes. And what Newcastle have got is, in their big guys in Smith and Reed and Defoe when and if he plays, they got and Long in particular, they've got players who can stay in front of smaller players,
Mm,
and that helps them guard. And then if they're clever with their matchups, they can, particularly at times they had Anthony guarding the point guard. Anthony just switches onto a big, and he's defending like a real big.
mm,
So it became kind of a one-on-one game for Cheshire. And Rideau didn't have the one-on-one game to score. Robinson was a little bit more impactful, but because Newcastle guys weren't leaving the shooters on the perimeter on the penetration, there wasn't any ball rotation, which made it harder for Cheshire to finish. And it was a physical game. And as I say, it wasn't overly consistently refereed, unfortunately. I mean, there was I'm never normally a believer in makeup calls, but I think as the refs get less experience, the makeup calls go up.
mm,
I think coaches are more likely to get one if they've had a little complaint earlier. So, one of the first plays of the game in the middle of that helter-skelter bit was Rideau running over Ward-Hibbert and Ward-Hibbert getting a block. And Stootle went ballistic because obviously his whole game plan was to stay in front of Rideau and take the hits. And then halfway through the second quarter, Reed runs over Cameron and Reed gets the call.
mm,
He gets an one call. And I'm looking and thinking, that's probably a foul. That's probably a charge, if you ask me. And I don't think that was dealt with. I don't think I was, a little bit concerned about it, to be honest.
mm,
I think it's harsh on to have three refs that I've never even seen before.
mm.
Show up and do a game like that is tough. For Cheshire, Paulicelli obviously can shoot. Cameron is kind of a younger version of Joshua Tibbett. To be honest, he's
Mm,
very similar. He's the game's not quite the same, but you see him in the offensive glass. You see him with picking up stuff. You see him trying to guard. You really see the mentality there. Um, the Robinson Rideau thing is obviously interesting. It will have solved a little bit over the weekend, hopefully, with the game on Sunday. But it's tough to play them both together because they both dribble the ball a lot. Um, but if they're both playing effectively, then it's a hell of a 1-2 punch to have.
yeah, yeah.
So but that's the thing. So really, that comes kind of down to I think more to Rideau than Robinson.
Mm,
Rideau was not good in this game. He was um, probably what two of like eight, 7 or 8, but he turned the ball over. He committed charges. He chucked up bad shots. He was try and a couple of times he was in the game for a minute or two, and then Ben pulled him.
mm,
So he's a they brought him back to be a talisman for that team, and he has to get up to the mark. The Eagles, yeah, I like watching them because they compete. They certainly compete. And still, I think if they hadn't signed Jack, they might have been offensively
mm,
struggling in this game, even to score the 70 that Cheshire did. But
mm.
they're a very competitive group.
It was Jack who led the scorers. 24 points, 8 of 15 shooting. Reed had 14 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Anthony 10 points, 13 points and 10 rebounds. Robinson 14. Policelli 4 of 9 for 3 for 12 points. White 10 points and 9 rebounds. Let's go to Saturday. Surrey 89 is 94. Manchester Basketball 80. An 8-2 run in the first quarter had Surrey up 18-10. And well, it was a bit like the other games we've talked about thus far. They kind of held that margin, really.
Right, well, let's just discuss Surrey because obviously we haven't seen him yet.
Mm,
And obviously, the first thing when we discuss the new team is we have to look down the roster list
mm,
and look at the names,
mm,
right? And so my first thing I thought was sorry was they've got a guy called Isaiah Small.
mm.
He's large.
He is large.
So if Small is large, riddle me this, Daniel.
Yeah.
What does that make polite?
Well, he didn't look very rude, but I'm sure we can find it.
If finding a point guard called polite, Lloyd, I absolutely adore it. It's just unbelievable.
Mm,
It just that's an all-time Pantheon name,
mm,
Ronald Polite.
mm.
No, obviously we had Julio Politi going back for
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
who was an Argentinian shooter who played for Bracknell for years, and could certainly shoot the ball. But to get to polite, just it's incredible.
Mm.
Um, on top of that, they've got a man called Lilly.
Lily, yeah,
He
Keno
plays for
Lily.
playing for the Whites.
He was indeed, yeah.
And they're pretty impressive. And
Yeah.
they've got a shooter, Owen somebody or other.
Kuntz.
Say that again?
Kuntz.
Oh, that's all right. Okay. Did he ever play with Gregor?
Gregor Kuntz.
No, no, no. Big Gregor.
Big Gregor. Gregor Fuka.
Yeah, because
Or
you
Stefan, the old German centre. Is that where
yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah,
leaning?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad you pronounced it the way you
Mm,
did. That's all right. So yeah, so they've got they're definitely leading the team name league this year.
mm.
And after Leicester's kind of incredibly boring effort last.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
To get a polite Kunz, a large, small, and whatever. Anyway, and also interestingly, they signed Hayden Ling, who's
Yeah, yeah.
ex goalkeeper at Chelsea Academy. Obviously, grew too big. Can't be a goalkeeper if you're going to bang your head on the crossbar
Mm.
every time you stand up. And went over to Spain, played a couple of years in Division 2 in Spain, and they brought him back. And we'll talk about him a little bit later. So yeah, so it was first look at Surrey, and overall quite a positive look, I thought, for a new bunch of players. They've got Andrew Lawrence back, the centre whose name I forget. Um,
Don't
I
think
can
now. I think you've bamboozled me with so many
Bamboozle with
names
names.
now. Yeah.
But and they're and Lily can clearly shoot the ball,
Mm,
so they're a little bit bigger in the backcourt than they were last year. And they've got a bit of veteran kind of nous as well there. And overall, yeah, they controlled this game. You were very, really quite, Manchester are structurally flawed. There wasn't much actually happened in this game, which kind of got my attention, if that makes any sense.
Mm.
The game was kind of there was a lot of well, a lot of good play from Surrey, but Manchester, I looked at the stats at the end, and you'll get to it in a minute, but I think 46 of their 65 shots were shot by the three guards or something like
Mm.
that, something
Mm.
ridiculous, high number, and clearly. PJ Smith is incredibly talented. He had 30 odd, and the other two and the two guards, is also very talented. I've forgotten
Jones.
Jones, Smith and Jones.
Smith and
Alas,
Jones,
how can I?
alas.
Alas, poor Manchester. Dear me, we're going all 90s, aren't we?
Yeah.
So yeah,
80s, I think, Smith and
80s,
Jones, wasn't
yeah,
it?
Smith
Yeah.
and Jones, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're two very talented players. But they struggled with Nicholson on the court again. They kind of don't quite know how to use him. Don't really throw it to him in the post. He's not a great kind of roll threat. He's a big guy. He can rebound. He can challenge shots. Um, and then kind of the wing guys. Ultimately Carey was again probably the most impactful
Mm. Mm.
wing player. Cleary, who shot the ball so well last week, never got a look really, and they didn't really do a good job of creating looks for him. So he was never really connected to the game. When John comes in, John's shooting the ball. He's got that kind of tough fadeaway 2-point shot in his arsenal. And I'm just wondering, how they're going to get a little bit more balance, because eventually all those other guys are going to stop running. You
Yeah.
know, um, so and thirdly, they got obviously the guards, Smith and Jones are rookies, I think, and so the defense is always tough on the road, and their defense really didn't survive that game. They gave too many open threes, in particular to Lilly and Kuntz, and you just got the feeling that that Coach Otten is still just measuring up his team, and kind of figuring out what he's got and where he needs it. Irving was less impactful in this game than he was in the previous game, because he just didn't touch the ball as much,
Mm.
you know. Um, but I didn't. Other than that, there wasn't much idiosyncratic in this game, or if there was, I can't remember it.
No, no. There's a
Um,
flurry of threes in the third quarter. Kuntz, Lilly, Teo pushed them out to 61-47. That was basically the game. Smith made some threes down the stretch, but they got no closer than six.
but yeah, and it's kind of, you've got to defend on the road.
Mm.
You got to defend 3-point on the road, otherwise you're going to lose. And they didn't. They didn't come into that. Manchester didn't really have the kind of the swagger. They're a young team. I mean, Cleary's a young player as well. Carey's been around a bit, but they are a relatively young team, and you might just have to kind of go through the ups and downs over the season, because it's going to be harder for them to win on the road, um, where they've got to get stops, than it is at home, where they can run up and down with people and score on them.
Mm.
So it will be fascinating to see. I think the coach is pretty smart from some of the moves that he's made, and it'll be fascinating to see what
They
just.
just signed somebody else today as well.
Oh,
I
well,
didn't have a
okay.
chance to look up anything about him. And he had
Oh,
a long name. I can't remember what it is, but
long names.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
small, or
No, no.
Smith and Jones, far easier.
Did you want to mention Ling before I give the scorers?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I mean, Ling was really interesting because he is a proper 7 foot. I think we could probably
Mm.
say. Um, his feet move quick. He looks like he can shoot it. He certainly looks like he's got. He doesn't look like he's got any particular flaw in his stroke. In the way that he shoots the basketball. Obviously, he's going to be matchup dependent, and Lloyd put him back in with 3 minutes to go, and he immediately gave up a strong side corner three, which is a big no-no, but that's because he's not used to guarding out there. And
Mm.
then he came out again. Um, but, he's in the best place. I think we've probably demonstrated over the past 3 or 4 years, it's the best place as a British player to, outside of London, where, if you're kind of next level up, to get better. They're going to throw him out there. And I think he has a chance. Yeah. That sounds a bit patronising, doesn't it? But not every kid who plays in the league has a chance.
Mm.
Even they had the lad a couple of years ago, Okasimi, who blocked shots and played well for a short period of time, ended up playing down there, going to uni, going off to Birmingham. So he's playing Division One. And there's no guarantee those players will ever come back to the
No.
SLP. We've seen it all the time. We always look at the next great British guy, but the hardest thing isn't to have a few good games as a British kid and be a kind of a prospect. It's to actually cement yourself and do what Tolvinskas did and actually cement yourself as a rotation player on a winning team. So he's got a chance of being that. And if he gets to that point, then that's a success because and that's a positive going forward because he's got all the physical tools at 7 foot and quick feet to be an impactful player here and internationally. We don't have any 7 footers.
No.
We never
No.
don't. We don't. I mean, British 7 footers are, you go back to Ian White. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
after that, in reality, we got 6'8" and 6'9" guys who can jump.
Mm.
Drew Bello started for us in Eurobasket. He's probably 6'7", you know. So yeah, keep an eye on Hayden Ling.
I've got Small down as 199 points. I'm assuming that's meant to be 19. 7
Yeah.
of 11 shooting, 8 rebounds. Lily 19, Polite 16 points and 8 assists. They were 11 of 22 from 3. Smith, with PJ Smith, 12 of 19. He was 8 of 13 from 3, 34 points, which is the best ever score. He had 32 twice in college.
Yeah, what I will say is I mean, Surrey's defense on the guards wasn't great either. So I
Mm,
don't think Surrey have cracked the door. I mean, the 2 or 3, Smith's got this little clearly his set shot is when he dribbles to his left over a screen to a little spot on the wing, and 3 or 4 times the basic screen and roll coverage from Surrey kind of screwed up, and he was standing there shooting rhythm open threes with his feet set. But to be fair, he knows his game. You can see he knows his game,
mm.
and to score 34 as a rookie is in your third game indicates a decent trajectory.
Jones, 4 of 14 for 10 points. Carey, 4 of 5 for
Yeah,
10 points. Let's come to Sunday. And full disclosure, my son is now currently trying to plug in for me because I'm getting low. And also, full disclosure, these next 2 games I've watched on a double screen whilst in Cheshire
yeah,
with no volume on. So I may well have, thank you very much. I may well have missed some stuff along the way. But let's start in Sheffield with Sheffield Sharks 78, Newcastle Eagles 73. Ward Hibbert has trailed earlier out. Dirk Williams' free throws 2 minutes into the game was the first lead change in a Sheffield game so far this season.
impressive.
They were
He obviously had a lead change memo this year, I think.
no, somebody else who I'm sure you can guess
Yeah.
gave me that one after the Leicester game that there'd been no
Yeah.
lead changes in the other 2. But
Um,
the other one I spotted myself, the Friday Saturday one I spotted myself.
this is a brutal game. I mean, it was brutal on a number of levels. Physically, ultra competitive. Execution wise, from both teams, brutal to
Mm,
watch
mm,
at times because of the ultra competitiveness of the defense. Um, from a decision made from a refereeing perspective, pretty brutal, I'm afraid.
mm,
And not that actually, I was rather hoping Newcastle could win, so I could Newcastle would win, so I could say this without being accused of sour grapes. But and ultimately, it didn't. The way the game was ref ultimately didn't actually change the manner in which it was won and why Sheffield won. But from about 2 minutes in, when they missed a clear on sportsmanlike on Reed as he's dribbling down the court, um, doesn't make the layup, it goes down the other end, and Nixon makes a three in the corner, and then it didn't get much better from there. There was a ridiculous unsportsmanlike called on Chapman for doing something. I just don't know what he did. It was kind of on an inbounds pass and minimal contact on long. And then players suddenly got into foul. Then we had foul trouble for certain players. Chapman had 3 fouls. But just the physicality of the game was uncontrolled, unfortunately.
mm.
It really was. And it wasn't an easy game. It was not an easy game, a referee at all. But no, but I didn't get them. And both teams were brutal offensively. I'll be honest. Probably Newcastle actually, where they lost the game was that in the first half and parts of the third quarter they missed chippy after chippy. They couldn't. I don't think they made a 3-point shot until the third quarter.
No, I think
Yeah,
it
the
might. Was
opening
it
shot
even the fourth quarter?
may have been. May have
It's certainly a long time before they made a shot.
Yeah, but they're missing little layouts at the rim. Long's missing them. Newcastle's defense actually, well, after Sheffield got off to a relatively hot start, Newcastle's defense again, kind of kicked in, and Sheffield didn't miss as many kind of easy ones because Newcastle forced them into some really tough shots, and that kind of clawed them back in. But half time it was 35-33,
Mm.
and it was that type of game.
There was a 9-3 run early on. Sheffield led by 10, 18-8. 9-2 reply to cut it to 3. There weren't many shots made at all in the second quarter, plenty of free throws. Only 7 field goals in the quarter, but Eagles did score 12 in a row. Sheffield didn't score for 6.5 minutes between, it was, I think, 6:35 to the last
Yeah,
second,
I mean,
basically.
it's interesting because Newcastle, I say Newcastle's switching defense is tough. There it really is. I mean, they have length with Jack, they have length with Long, and they're not allowing teams to get kind of rotational 3-point looks, which is what a lot of teams are relying on early on in the season. And both teams were pretty well prepared for each other because, Dirk was in Jack's face the whole game as well. And if Newcastle were running screens on the kind of high up on the wing, then Sheffield were coming out to trap them to make them kind of throw the ball past that. And Nixon had one of those games whereby because he never got into a rhythm, he ended up like 2 of 13.
Mm,
So he tends to stop forcing a couple of shots because he likes to see the ball go through the hoop. Um, but it was the physicality of the game um, kind of overrode everything else, I thought. Um, and I think it needed to have been, it could have been controlled, but it really wasn't much of a spectacle, this game. That said, it was won because basically Sheffield had better guards than Newcastle on the day, and in particular, better guard, particularly Chapman. Chapman
mm.
came to play in the fourth quarter.
Uh, Lee and Chapman hit threes to put Sheffield up 6 with 3.5 to go. Taylor and Long replied to tie it up at 71-71, and then 147 to go. Chapman with a pull up three made it 71-74.
Yeah, and then the next play down, Clark got a good look from three as well, but it bounced
Missed
out,
it, yeah.
and that's kind of the game on the road, that's why you don't want to be in that situation on the road whereby you're in a one-shot game because it's more likely the home team is gonna make the shot. Um, what I will say is Chapman's a good story, because he had a
Yeah,
serious
yeah.
injury, a really serious injury, and Sheffield obviously liked him enough to keep him around. That generally means that they liked him as a person more than they liked him as a player. You don't keep players around after injuries like that unless you see something in them as a person. Because there's lots of players who can play like Chapman.
Mm,
Okay, that you can find in Europe, whatever, if you really want to. But they kept him around, and that generally means that player's going to give back for you. And obviously, the first couple of games, last year he's back into it. This game, he looked like what he was last year, which was an MVP candidate.
mm,
He elevated himself in the last 5 minutes, basically above everybody else. He made some shots. He got to the rim a couple of times as well. Um, So that's a really good story. And if he stays healthy, Sheffield become exponentially better.
mm,
Um, he doesn't still, I think it'd be fair to say, he doesn't have the real quickness he had last year. I think he's still gonna have to retain explosiveness, maybe that's the word. But he's clearly a guy who can impact the game, and he's feisty. And he wants to play. You can see because there was he got into it with somebody in this game as well. I think Long and maybe him and Long got into it, and
mm.
picking a fight with a Canadian. I mean, an American picking a fight with a Canadian. You've got to be careful nowadays. Donald will have them at war.
Mm.
There'll be troops in Ottawa. So yeah, and it finished. And unfortunately, I think the game was basically done when Clark missed that three. But
Yeah, Cohen
then
came down the other way, fouled on a drive, made 2 free throws, and then Jack misses the three the other way. That was
and
basically
then
it.
I think from what I remember, William Lee missed a dunk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hung on the rim and nobody decided to call basket interference because it was just far too complicated.
It has to be the impacting on the ball, though. I didn't think it was.
Well, his hands, so he's dunking, he's trying to dunk the basket. He's trying to dunk the basketball. He's holding on the rim. Is that not
It's not
interfering?
the 80s where you couldn't do
Uh,
that. You are allowed to do that now. I
oh,
think
I
that
don't
was
know.
a bit harsh. Chapman with 20, Williams and Nixon with 11, 35% field goal shooting for Sheffield. Jack 21, Anthony 16 points and 9 rebounds, Long and Taylor 12, 36% shooting
See, and that, to be
for
honest, that's
Newcastle.
kind of more encouraging for Newcastle than it is for Sheffield because Sheffield have so much talent, offensive talent. If you can hold them at 35% shooting, you're doing quite well. Now, obviously, part of that is Sheffield. Part of that is the fact that they got that Chapman and Nixon were in a bit of foul trouble as well. And that's when Newcastle really could have won the game, but they didn't. Um, but the way the rosters are up at the moment, if you tell Stuart that they're going to go into, Sheffield, basically lose a one or two shot game without making a shot for three quarters, and in the meantime have held Sheffield at 35%, he's going to think we're probably going in the right direction.
Mm,
Um, you do have, what Sheffield have, which probably Cheshire have, and a few other teams have, and Newcastle don't have, is that explodability.
mm,
That ability to go boom, 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 10 points, bang. 10-0 run in a minute. Now, Newcastle didn't let them do that, but that was because of the physicality of the game, physicality of the defense on both sides, and I think the generosity of the refereeing at times.
mm. Let's go to Bristol. Bristol Flyers 74, Leicester Riders 70. You mentioned Leicester signed Raquan Battle. He was straight into the starters, hit a three with his first touch on the first play. He had two
Well,
early
actually,
threes.
I've just forgotten the most Leicester Sheffield. I'm sorry we were out of turn for this,
Yeah.
but the um the one thing that befuddled me more than anything else in this game, in the Leicester Sheffield game, was Rowe's description of one of the Leicester players distorting his body.
Distorting his body. Who did he say that
I
about? I
can't
didn't follow
remember, but I
that.
think he meant contorting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think of some postmodernist kind of surrealist painter that he was talking about,
Yeah.
but I can't remember who it
Bit
was.
of
It might
Dali.
be, yeah, maybe somebody who was, maybe in Kern or somebody. I can't remember being Sheffield player, but yeah, distorting his body made me think. Impressive.
Uh, Going back to
For
Leicester
Leicester.
Bristol,
Yeah.
Leicester with 5 of 8 from behind the arc in the first quarter, Flyers 0 for 6. Leicester also getting some offensive rebounds, and they led 28-14 at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah, I thought firstly, obviously Leicester played like they just been just like Sheffield had the week before. They played like they just laid an egg basically.
Mm,
Um, and against that, Bristol were playing their third game in 5 days,
mm,
and they played their first quarter was pretty awful. The shots weren't dropping. That's one thing. The defense wasn't there. Leicester were motivated. They were up for it, and they kind of got into a bit of rhythm as well. And Battle obviously made some shots, which helps. When the first one goes through, or the first two go through,
mm,
and I'm talking about the first two in the game. I'm talking about the first two in a season.
mm,
Then that kind of gives everybody else a bit of a boost. Brody came in and played probably the worst 4 minutes I've seen this season in the first quarter. They just didn't look ready, Bristol. They looked a bit. I don't know if it's worn down or if it's mentally worn down. And to be honest, they didn't really look ready the whole game, apart from the guy whose first name I will never again forget.
Will.
Will Yoakum, yeah.
Mm,
Apologies, Will, but if forgetting your name means you play like that, I'm sure Andreas will want me to do it more often.
mm.
Um, because Leicester is a little bit like Newcastle, I think. I'm not, they're still probably scoring challenged. I was going to say that. I don't think you don't see that roster putting up 90 plus in many games the way they are at the moment. Um, so they're going to have to hold teams down. And to be fair, they did hold Bristol down for much of the game. But when you've got a team of shooters, sometimes only one of them has to go off to win you the game.
Yeah. So Flyers had it down to 6 pretty quickly in the second quarter, and then the Anderson twins hit threes to make it 34-37 just before halftime.
That's
Leicester,
in the DeVito Schwarzenegger kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
win.
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Leicester were 49-56 in front, 3 minutes from the end of the first quarter, but
Good one.
your mate Will scored 12 in an 18-3 run around the final break to lead 67-59 with 6 to go.
Yeah, and it was Leicester kind of going dry a little bit offensively. and as I say, the
Turn the ball over as well.
turn the ball over a little bit, and just a new youngish team, and playing in a difficult environment and just not quite kind of functioning the way that Rob would want them to. Um,
It
the
was it was 70-61 with four to go. Battle and Evie then combined for nine straight points to tie the game up.
There was a
132 to go,
ridiculous,
70-70.
there was a ridiculous unsportsmanlike foul in that, wasn't there? Somebody committed a really dumb foul, unsportsmanlike foul. Maybe at half court, I can't remember. I think
I can't remember it.
I can't remember anyway, whatever.
As I say, on the
Um,
dual screen, I don't see everything in
yeah,
that.
but there was so they got a couple of foul shots out of it, and then Evie's clearly a kind of a tough shot maker. He's not going to shy away from the moment. At the moment, he kind of is the man on that team.
Mm.
So they got down to 70-70, and then the randomness of basketball
Yeah,
comes along because
yeah, yeah.
Leicester played 23 seconds of great defense, and Joachim makes a
He
what
made a nice backdoor cut, to be fair. He just bobbled the ball
a
and then,
backdoor cut, bobbled the ball, dribbled out to the 3-point line, jumped 180 degrees, and the rest is best demonstrated by Rob's
yeah,
reaction, which
yeah,
was,
yeah.
you know,
When you've hit all those points in the fourth quarter that he hit, those go in, don't they? So
except that he had another one the next time down, he was wide open.
yeah, yeah,
He
he
missed
did
it.
actually. Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's the randomness of sport. That's the
yeah,
randomness of the Ryder Cup. Of an
yeah,
inch here or an inch there.
yeah, yeah,
We all
yeah,
ascribe everything to tactics, but at the end of the day,
yeah,
he chucks in a shot which is just almost unmakeable.
yeah.
Takes it and then misses one which is wide open, and yeah,
In between those two, Evie missed a three, a deep three as well,
yeah,
and
that would have
then
been an inch out.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was out.
So then Leicester have got the ball back with about 30 seconds to go, down 73-70. Evie goes past Holden, who reaches around him, just knocks the ball loose. Evie dives for it, gets the ball, but he's surrounded by Bristol players, can't get the pass out. Because it's a bit of a scramble, and because Holden had been beaten and knocked the ball away, he's, of course, down court, so they
Cool.
managed to run 10 seconds off the clock. Plus, at that point, Leicester still had two fouls to give.
Yeah, that's just a little. Well, I say it's inexperience, but Holden's had that reach around for a
Mm,
while. It's a
mm,
high risk play,
mm.
but it worked on this occasion.
I
Yeah,
did think for a second, by the way, when I was watching it, we were about to get the old faithful in that inbound spot from
yes,
Bristol, but I watched it back on Synergy, and the ball actually left Holden's hands at
4.8,
4.9.
4.9. Yeah,
4.9. Even
yeah,
then, they nearly turned it over. I wasn't
yes,
quite sure that was a foul, but Leicester probably
foul
needed the
anyway.
quick whistle.
Yeah,
So they probably weren't too disappointed because if he'd rolled about for a bit and then you foul him, you lose a bit of seconds. And then Yoko makes one free throw with eight seconds to go to seal it. Another one, by the way, that I'm sure you noticed, a massive lane violation by Yoakum on the second free throw. He was
catches
halfway
into it.
down the key.
And of course, this will be happening um, as Newcastle are playing Arsenal and the Ryder Cup.
Oh yeah,
So
sorry.
no, I didn't.
But
And
you
the
go
game was
back,
picked up.
he's well inside before the ball hits because he's obviously the
The
shooter. He
shooter,
has to
yeah.
wait for the ball to hit the rim. And the reason that it doesn't matter because it's a 4 point game, but the reason it could matter is because obviously Leicester get a live ball, clock ticking, whereas if you call a violation, it's a sideline ball and gives them a
Yes.
chance to
Yeah, give them a little
to
bit more of
draw
a chance.
something up.
That's true.
They still lose anyway because they don't fall, but there you go. So Joachim, 11 of 18 shooting, 29 points. Zach Anderson, 13. They were the only two in double
Yeah,
figures.
and 29 out of 74. So the
Mm,
rest of them scored 45 put together.
yeah, yeah.
Kind of summarizes that game.
Mm. Martin, 7 of 9, 16 points, 8 rebounds. Evie, 15 points, 7 assists. Battle, 14. 2004-5, the last time Leicester were 0 and 3 to start the season.
Less than 4-5.
Mm.
God, that's I can't even that's I can't even think that would have been the first year Newcastle won something. So who would have been playing then?
What for Leicester?
Yeah. Wasn't
Uh,
the team, was it?
was it the Mike Pegues and
Oh, Mike
all of
Piggies,
that?
yes.
That
Yes. Yeah. Also all-time name team.
mm.
Um, Funky 3-point shot.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Did he
I think
lead
he
the
ended up
league
being,
in scoring? He was close
yeah,
to
I
it.
think he ended up being a coach in America, mate, Piggies.
Yeah, I think he
Yeah,
did. Yeah.
he was non-permit.
Was it the speaking of the names? Was the guy Wyatre or something like that? But it was spelled like Ouatre or something. Mike, was it Mike? I can't
Dairy.
remember his name.
No, don't remember him. But
And they had
I
the
do
was
remember
it the
Piggies.
season they had the Austrian American guy as well. I can't remember his name now.
We're
I
getting old,
can't.
aren't we?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Aye,
20 years ago.
true. No, because obviously Pagista should have signed Paganda.
Geese and Paganda.
Yeah, yeah.
That would have been the one, wouldn't it? Well, let me. Did I gave all of that. So let me give the
Yes.
scores, and we'll start. And what I'll do is I'll have a quick look and see who it was in that team, just for you. Uh, so
Nobody
uh,
else gives a toss.
Nobody else cares, but just for you, Dave. Cheshire Phoenix 108, Caledonia Gladiators 96. We sort of hinted at it a little earlier, but Robinson into the starters and Rideau off the bench in this one. Pretty much up and down first quarter. Both teams hitting threes, a sign of what was to come.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you can really say about Ben Thomas is he's never pandered to egos. He will sit players down if he thinks it's for the best of the team, and he'll do it in quite an abrupt way, and they've got to get over it. And I think it probably 0-3 where they're at. Obviously, they had a remarkably tough start. They played 3 games in 7 days on the road, and then they get a home game, so that becomes tough for them. But those 3 games were enough to show them that Robinson was being more impactful than Rideau. So it's kind of the way of giving Rideau a little bit of a kick up the backside. The game itself, you would call it an offensive extravaganza,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
it
I
did with
know
all
what
the
you'd
threes
call
that
it.
went in. I would call it utterly disgraceful defense. I'm sorry, despicable. I'm a little bit more down on. I mean, you'll get through the game, but the game is basically you shoot, I shoot.
Yeah, yeah,
Apart from one incredibly ridiculous Toto Fagbenley block. Uh,
yeah. Wow.
I know, but you've got to make a shot. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, yeah.
It's 14% threes last year. He's got to improve other areas of his game, not just what he can do. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm really kind of a little bit more down on concerns with Caledonia now. Firstly, because looking back at the Newcastle game, they gave up 94 points in regular time to Newcastle,
Mm.
who probably aren't the most powerful offensive team in the league at the moment. And then they gave up to Cheshire anything they wanted, but more than that, I think Cheshire got 42 3-point shots up in this game.
43.
43. Now, I don't know what they got up in I think in Newcastle it was something like 6 of 25, maybe 27.
I think I wrote that down. Let me have a look. No, I didn't write it down. I
No, I
just,
think, but they didn't make many. Well, I
yeah.
think it wasn't that they didn't make many, they didn't take as many.
Mm.
It's the way they defended. Now, um, to be fair, Johnny tried to switch like Newcastle did. He obviously watched the game and decided that he was going to try and switch as well. The problem is it's very difficult to switch when you've got a centre like um, Williams or Allen in the game, and your guards are little like Holland and Jimenez are.
Mm.
So then you could exploit mismatches. And then when they stopped switching and they started allowing Cheshire to reverse the ball, Cheshire's point of it, Caledonia's point of attack defense was awful. And what I will say is, for all we laugh about the charges there were in Newcastle against Cheshire on Friday night, and the amount of charging fouls that were both sides, and the amount of people putting their bodies on the line. I didn't see anybody in this game who put their body on the line.
Mm.
Cameron plays really hard, and always does. Is always going to do that. Rideau obviously plays aggressive, but no one got in front of Rideau and took a charge in this game. Um, and it just kind of made me fear a little bit for Caledonia because if they give up 94 at home to Newcastle, then they give up 107 and 42 3-point attempts to Cheshire on the road, whereby the first point of your scouting report would have to be keep them off the 3-point line.
Mm.
I mean, you've seen enough now. You've got, that's how Newcastle beat them. They held them off the 3-point line.
Mm.
And now you've got White, you've got Policelli, you've got um, anybody apart from the guards. You don't want shooting the three,
Mm.
and you want to make Rideau and Robinson beat you, and they just thought that he kind of failed to do that. Against that, they've got some absolute snipers as well.
Mm. Mm.
Ragsdale gave me vibes of Do you remember Lorenzo Cugini?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah,
before that, at Cheshire, Chilo Latinovic.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Still has vibes of both of those guys,
mm,
whereby if he's open, he's making it
yeah.
off the catch.
It's definitely going up if he's
It's
open.
going up, but I mean,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
even the shots he makes look good. They look
mm,
like they're going in. They don't kind of bobble around. Um, yeah, and Alan obviously is a talented scorer. He can score the ball. When he gets the ball, he's a focal point. It's
mm,
going up.
mm,
Um, and even there's the other guy, obviously Ethan Wright, talented,
mm,
talented scorer. So they're getting the threes that they want, but somewhere's got to get a stop. Somewhere's got to put their body on the line. And LaQuincy Rideau, to be fair to him, after what I've said about Friday, he was very good in this game.
yeah, he was. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and the question is that because of the shot across his bows from the coach? Is it because he knows he hasn't been accomplishing what he's accomplishing, or is it because of the way he was played by Caledonia?
Mm,
It's kind of worrying when Kyle Jimenez is the only one who's really kind of getting his elbows dirty and looking to
mm,
get, and not looking to back down. Everybody else in that Caledonia team, they don't have it. They don't have a Prince Onwas there
mm,
anymore. Someone's gonna have to start doing some dirty work for that team.
mm,
Now it's only 2 games, so obviously it's a little bit um, probably early, and I'm probably being a little bit dramatic in saying that. But they've given up, they're averaging 100 points given up now
yeah, yeah.
in 2 games. You're not going to win many in the SLB like that. So offensively, they look very good, but defensively, ah,
Mm.
not great.
So before we go to the game, let's deviate down
Sorry.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Irvin Murray, Eric Williams,
Eric
Mike
Williams,
New, little bit of Steve McLaughlin, little bit of Mark Considine, Steady Baker, Joel Burns.
that's not a bad team. Then they must have had them all at the beginning.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
Oh, John Smith played 22 games as well, Big John.
oh yes, yes, he was. Yes, I've never. That wasn't a Mims team, was it? That a Mims team?
4-5. No, no, no. That was
No.
later. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think whether that was Carl Brown or it could have even been Martin Ford coach one year, didn't he? So
Yeah. That's right.
Martin was a bit. I think Martin was the year before Rob, wasn't he? So it's
Yeah.
probably
Carl Brown.
Carl Brown.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Look,
Uh,
Mike, we got a mention for Mike Pegues, which
yeah,
again,
there you go. Yeah, that's what
not
made it
not
worth
bad.
it. Yeah, you get your value for money here, folks.
Yeah, I think
So
he went to Brighton, I think, afterwards as well. I think, maybe wrong.
Pegues.
Yeah, did he go
No,
to
I think he
Brighton?
only played 1 year.
Or somebody else went to Brighton. Lepore went to Brighton. That was a different guy. Steve Lepore.
So
Different. Sorry.
So,
Yeah.
Zona and Rideau combined for three straight threes, 13 points in a 15-2 run. They led 42 29, still 6:40 to go in the first half at that point. White, Cameron, Robinson, Diggins all hit threes early in the third quarter. League got out to 21, but you've already touched on it. Ragsdale, Wright hitting threes late in the third quarter, got it to 85-77 at the end of the period, but they never got any closer. And Cheshire
And
always had a three
and
to.
you know who liked this game more than anybody else?
Who was that?
Every agent of a player in that game. Each and every agent would have been
Yeah,
salivating. The
yeah,
numbers
yeah.
going up. It was an agent's game. I mean,
Mm,
the threes that they made, particularly Cheshire, they were getting them off one pass penetration,
mm,
and they were open. They weren't just open; they were wide open. And
mm,
there are some guys on that Cheshire team who don't need to be wide open to make threes.
mm,
Skylar White and Bolicelli in particular.
mm,
So, they've got that. And Cheshire's defense really wasn't that much better, but it was almost like they got, because I'd seen them play physical against Newcastle, but it was almost like they got kind of roped into this kind of up and down game. And when you're in by 20, you don't necessarily be that, you're not necessarily that physical on
mm,
defense because you're in such a good rhythm on offense, you just want the ball back.
mm,
A bit risky because obviously when those guys get hot, it gets a little bit close by the end. But at no point did I think that someone in Caledonia was going to step up and get a stop. And
mm,
by that point, Fai Benley, I mean, I say he should be their best defensive player. He should be an all-league defensive player. His
mm,
athleticism, his length, etc. But Robinson scored on him on a switch.
mm,
Robinson, he should be able to defend Robinson on a switch. And he was buried. He had 10 minutes. He only played 10 minutes in the game because the coach couldn't trust him.
mm,
And so he's one of the better defensive players. He wasn't on the court. So they got involved in the scoring race on the road. We know how that ends.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Diggins, 3 of 3 from 3 point range for 16 points. Policelli, 5 of 10 from 3 point range for 15 points. Rodeau, 14 points, 5 assists, 4 steals. 18 of 43 Cheshire from behind the arc. Ragsdale, 23 points, 7 of 10 from 3 point range. Spielman, 18 points and 5 assists. Holland, 15, 17 of 34 from 3 point range, and 35 is the most threes made in a game since 2008, which basically means ever, because
Yeah.
nobody was shooting 77 3 point attempts before
Those
2008.
numbers are staggering though, because how can you shoot 50% from the 3 point line on the road, make 17 threes, and not have a chance to win the game?
Yeah,
You don't have
yeah,
to win the game,
yeah.
but not even to have a chance to win the game, in the last 3 minutes, shooting the ball like that. You know, there's two sides to the ball. This is probably the one lasting message of 6 years of this podcast against all the commentary, where
Yeah,
everybody's dragged to the ball, everybody looks at the
yeah,
ball, we're all
yeah.
looking at who made the play and all of that stuff. But there are two bloody sides,
Mm,
and you've got to play the other side. And like all sports, it's how you do the niggly things and how
mm,
you get over screens and how you compete for rebounds and just all the little stuff which ultimately helps you win because all the players are talented,
mm,
you
mm,
know. And I need more little stuff from Caledonia. I'm
mm.
sorry, that's not, giving up 101 on average in 2 games in the first 2 games of the season is not a good set. So despite the fact that offensively they were probably 50 times better than both Newcastle and Sheffield in the Newcastle Sheffield game,
Mm,
I'm far higher on Newcastle and Sheffield because because of their defense.
mm,
I think in defense, defense is a mindset. And if you don't get it early, it can run away with you. So they've got some work to do on the defensive side of the ball.
yeah, yeah.
Cheshire, I mean, they come off a tough week, to be fair, 4 games in 9 days to start. Um, they're going to live and die on the three ball. I think that's probably pretty clear now. But, to get to that next level, Rideau's got to be good consistently.
Mm,
Because outside of Rideau and Robinson, they haven't got much on the kind of on
mm,
ball offense, on ball penetration, and both Rideau and Robinson dribble the ball quite a lot. And the rest of the guys are all kind of catch and shoot guys or catch and drive guys. Um, so you can't have one of those guys being as ineffective as he was the first 2 games of the season. To
mm,
get to that next level, he can't have 4 points and 5 fouls and 4 turnovers. But against that, the history is that he will get to that level because we've seen
mm,
it before.
mm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but maybe the argument is, as I say, that team, that was a pretty, experienced team that had Ulf and Maceo Jack and Aaron Rye and those guys.
Mm,
So it's a bit more heavy lifting for him to do this year, I think.
mm, mm. So we reached the
Oh,
end.
but
Yeah.
we also missed the bit in the London Cheshire game at the end where Sabonis
Oh, the
could,
handshake.
yeah, the handshake
Yeah, yeah,
handshake
yeah, yeah.
gate.
Handshake gate.
Yeah,
So for those who didn't see it,
yeah,
Ben has this thing. He's always done it. Ben
yeah.
goes to the back of the line. Normally, most coaches, they're the first ones that walk over. They walk over, they shake hands, and then the lines follow them down. But Ben
And
is
that's
always,
generally self-preservation after a loss because you just want to walk up, shake hands, and get the hell
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That was always me.
yeah.
Never happened. I mean, when
But
BJ Jones made bombed a three on the buzzer at beat us at Sheffield, I think I was shaking the keeper's hands within about a second and a half.
yeah, yeah,
Literally,
yeah.
bump it off, right? I'm off, and then swearing about it afterwards. So
But
that you just
but
want to get out of
Ben has always
there.
win or lose. He goes stands down the end, waits for all the other handshakes, and then he goes. And it seemed like Coach Sabonis was not best pleased
Well, it
that.
seems like it's probably not the done thing in Lithuania.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
probably
yeah.
the best way you
I
would
think
say.
he made that point. I think I'm led to believe. I've heard rumor, heard tell that there was a bit of a handshake issue before the game as well.
Oh, right.
So whether
Okay.
whether that sort of adds up, I don't know.
Oh, well, let's keep it going because you've got
Yeah,
but now you've got you have to have the beefs. Bring on the
yeah.
beefs. Philip
bring on the
and
beat.
Rideau, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
But yeah, no, just a little bit of SLB nonsense, SLB smiley stuff makes me
yeah,
smile.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I love to see that type of
yeah.
stuff.
But the antenna was up straight away at the end. I was like, "Ooh, what's this? No,
Yeah,
no, don't pan away. Let's see what's
let's
going
see what's
on."
going on. Absolutely, yeah, you look absolutely because this type of stuff is almost far more interesting than the game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's a serious point to this stuff. It does project forwards,
Mm.
you
Yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
does project forward because sports people, and in particular basketball players,
yeah,
have the longest memory span
yeah, yeah,
for
yeah,
being for what they would consider being disrespected. I'm not saying
yeah,
there
yeah.
wasn't any disrespect, but for what they
I
would
forget which game it was. There was one game at the end of it where one of the new players looked in fury that somebody was throwing the ball up from half court
yeah,
on the buzzer, and it was like points difference, my
points difference,
friend.
mate. Yeah,
Welcome to the world.
absolutely. And that stuff you can kind of sort out in the locker room, but there will be times whereby the best teams kind of base themselves around grudges which are like 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, I had many of that. There was, and I was certainly when I was involved. I'm looking at thinking I don't have a problem with this, but maybe for whatever any type of motivation
yeah, yeah,
would be used to get to build that kind of them against us. So it's kind of a little psychological kind of side to it. Um, the London Cheshire matches, obviously, there's a bit of history. There
yeah,
is, I
yeah,
mean, there's a
yeah,
bit of history with
yeah.
the fans, with Cheshire beating London in the final, all of that stuff. With comments with Philip, with Rideau, and all that stuff. So it's the nearest thing we do have to a true kind of not grudge, but a little bit of
Animos.
animos, yeah.
Mm.
So it's worth watching going forward. So when do they play next? Let's see.
I don't know. I haven't
I don't
looked.
care.
Yeah,
Not at
yeah,
this point. But
yeah,
yeah, we'll store it away.
yeah. So the end of a show where we've talked about Julio Politi, Mike Pegues, and Dave's had a moan on
Yeah,
that we've seen a record number of threes and he didn't like it. Well, we're just giving the
or
people what they want.
yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully, if nothing else, hopefully it's being polite.
Yeah,
Being polite,
hopefully it
Rodney.
has, and we're going to get that bombshell all season long. So
Yeah,
we'll be back.
is Ronald I'm sorry, and I thought he played really well, so I'm not
Yeah, yeah,
knocking him.
yeah,
And this is unfortunately the type of thing which keeps us entertained as opposed just to talking dryly about basketball. Is he a polite the first or a polite the second or anything like that? Do we know?
yeah. I can't remember now. Lily is definitely a junior.
Yeah, Lily's a
Yeah, I
junior.
can't
Yeah.
remember if Polite is a junior or it's
'Cause
he's the
obviously, we
first
haven't
that
really
it's
got
in
any
from.
kind of James Reith. James Reith's the
We've
19th.
got
Yeah,
obviously Chapman is the third.
Chapman is a third. Yeah,
Yeah,
Rodney
yeah,
Rodney
yeah.
Chapman. All right. So yeah, so that clubs need to look out for that when they're making
Mm,
their next signings.
yeah.
I haven't even got in my line about Marco Anthony saying not tonight, Cheshire. You know?
Oh dear. Oh dear. Dad jokes are here all week. Right, on that epic, we're gonna leave it. We'll be back. There's only a few games next week, but
Yeah,
we'll
Eagles don't play, so
see
that.
if we can do Sunday night. I'm not sure. I'm in Manchester, so
Oh, cool.
might just be able to. It's an early tip off, I think. So we'll be back next week at some point in all good podcast places that we normally are that we never plug. So find us wherever you're listening to this.
Okay.
And for now, let's go. Goodbye. See ya.
Goodbye.